This always.
It's so cool what you do, actually.
Thank you. Well. Hello, everyone. We are back again with another episode from the Book Bar. Today I am so very thrilled to have Miss Angelina Menchan in the studio today, talking with us about her latest release. Well, one of her latest releases, the BLACKMON Ranch series. And guys, let me tell you, you have to read this book. It's entertaining, but it's also inspiring, and it's also educational. And I am labeling in this series as such a time as this series. So welcome, Miss Angelina, Miss Menchan. I am so truly grateful for you to be visiting the Book Bar and sitting down, taking some time to sit down and talk to us today about this series and anything else you want to tell us about, actually.
I'd just like to say that I'm really thrilled to be here. I really appreciate being invited. Every time I'm invited, I'm appreciative because no one has to invite me anywhere. And you've always been so gracious to me since I met you on Facebook. And the fact that you were reading my books were very thrilling to me when you reached out and was saying, I really like what you're doing with these BLACKMON Ranch people. And there's a little thing that I have to say is that I was born in Ocala, Florida, and a lot of people have never heard of it. Mm-hmm. But Ocala, Florida is the horse capital of the U.S. and one of the biggest horse ranch places in the world.
Okay.
Bigger than Kentucky. I mean, there's like a $2 billion center in Ocala, Florida, which is horses predominantly. So I grew up in that area, and horses and cowboys was always a part of our life.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was one of the questions I was going to ask, because as I was reading this, we always go with what we know, and ranches is usually typically in Texas and, Oklahoma, Kentucky. And those kind of play in Kentucky, mm-hmm. and those kind of places. But when I saw Florida, I immediately said, okay, she's doing something different. And, I wanted to ask, like, okay, what was your research? Did your research actually bring you to the point of having this setting in Florida?
Well, Ocala, as I said, there are a couple of things that inspired me. I must admit that in 2022, my husband and I binged Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And I thought to myself, now this could be done in Black, but with much better people, mm-hmm. because the Yellowstone folks were something else.
Yeah.
And because I grew up where I grew up, I knew what I was trying to do. And I also wrote it from the perspective of a lot of Black people and white people in Ocala lost their land to that huge place that came out there. They made a lot of money that they wouldn't have made had it not come, but they didn't make nearly the amount of money they would have made if, say, they were selling it currently. Mm-hmm. So that was something that always touched me when people give up ancestral lands is something. And anyone that's read the Bleak books know that he's big on saving ancestral lands of not just African Americans, but Native Americans, because if you've read the first book, it tells you that his father's father was of African and Native ancestry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just want to say, hey, Mama Tony, thank you for joining.
Tony.
But I'm going to go back, because I get too excited, and y'all, this series is really exciting. But let me just tell you a little bit about the lady in the room for us. Let's give her a little bit of what she's done so far. So Miss Menchan is, of course, a mother, a wife, a nana, and a mentor, who she holds those titles very dearly. But since January of 2006, she has published several books, both in print and ebooks. Okay, if this is through her small publishing company, the MAM Productions. She's also co-founder of the Honorable Menchan Media, through which she has also published books for several authors outside of herself. Her personal motto, and I love this, there is an abundance through God for all of us. We simply have to open up open up for our blessings. And I have to ask you if, and we'll talk about this too, but I wonder if this is where the Just Love come from.
That's exactly where it comes from.
Yeah.
Just love was something that I just said, just love. And I have so many titles: book lady, just love lady. Now I'm the oils and butters lady. And Mama Deep, my son's rap name was Deep, and his friends started calling me Mama Deep, and it just grew into a mantra. But yeah, that's where it comes from. And in 2016, when I was preparing to retire, I started Just Love Ministry, which initially was just going to be mentoring and workshop ministry for young girls. But it morphed into something else during COVID. People needed money for food and diapers and milk. So it also became that. And I've had people who signed on who support the ministry. And I also do whatever I can. The books that I sell, the oils, they all go into supporting my ministry. And we do scholarships. I've done 7 scholarships since 2019 for graduating seniors. They get, initially it was, it's like a couple $100 in a journal. And then as the ministry grew, I was able to give computers, more money, and other items in through Just Love Ministry. So it's a mentoring, workshops, anything that I can do to assist, even providing books to the prison for incarcerated youth and journals. Because when I was a Job Corps counselor, journaling was how I reached my young men. My young men were between the ages of 16 and 25. And once I say write your feelings or draw your feelings, they opened up and started letting me in. I was called the thug counselor.
I can believe. Look, I can believe. I can believe that. Well, and then you also have some merch, which I was lucky enough to grab some too. This is my prize. So this is the Just Love Cup. You have T-shirts, journals, and just a host of other merch that we can all support and purchase and help out.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then later on, just before we commence, you're going to tell us about all the things that you're doing and how we can help as well. But now, come on, let's get on back onto this ranch here,
because that's how we all here.
All right. So let me just tell you, I think it said that your husband, but I thought it was your son that actually made the covers for you.
But he made maybe the first 3 covers, and he's done, of the 8 books, he's done 4 and I've done 4. Okay.
So the covers, like one day I'm flipping through Facebook and I see this cover, and the colors were so crisp and it was so real, because these ranchers on here, one of the things I like about it is I love ranching, I love horses. But the one thing about this is your men on the cover of the books are real men.
Black men.
Right, real Black men, like you might see next door neighbor kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's just, it is what it is with them, unapologetically them. So the cover is what drew me to it initially. And I had no idea that I was going to be entertained by a ranch and horses, all the things that I love. So I have to ask you, with everything that's going on in this book, and if you guys know in the beginning, I told you the series is entertaining. It has a lot of nuggets in it, but it's also educational. So stay with us here. So you tell me, when you first started the first book, what was your inspiration? What made you go with these characters and this ranch?
Oh my God, that's the hardest thing, because the first thing that I come up with is a name. I knew his name would be BLACKMON. That appealed to me on every single level. And he would be dark and handsome, because we have preferences. That's one of mine.
Yeah.
And when I started writing the book, just Bleak as the ranch owner just wasn't working for me. I said, Bleak needs a woman. So I decided that he'd have an attorney that was retiring, and I would bring in Anastasia Wright, who had her own success, and she'd worked for another ranch. And the first day that she walked into the office, he was horrible to her. And she held her own. She said, he asked her how old she was. And she said, well, how old are you? if that's the kind of questions that you're asking, because he was feeling that he was being played because he had no use for a wife. Even with this very wealthy man, he had no sense of wanting an heir or anything. So it just was born from that tug of back and forth. You think you know what you want until you see what it is that you want. And she literally drove him crazy because every guy on the ranch, especially one of our favorite characters, was after her. His Nathaniel, his ranch, who became his ranch manager. And that's when he realized that I have a problem with this woman. He even left the ranch because he left his ranch because he couldn't deal with feeling the way that he felt about her. And I love those kind of relationships because that's one of the things that keep romance hot. You never really know what you're going to get from your partner sometimes. And they can always surprise you. I think my husband and I, after 46 years, he's still like, Lord, I don't even know what this woman going to say or do next. Well, I mean, it's just, and I saw that Anastasia would be that kind of woman, but Bleak to me is just Bleak. He is known as the blackest cowboy. He's really happy to be a black man in America. And he is about his people. And he discovered that Anastasia was also about her people, because there's a little thing, and I don't think it's giving anything away. In one of the recent books, he asked her if she would shoot him. And she told him, she said, I will shoot for you. I'll take a bullet for you. But if you ever get out of line, I will put a bullet in you.
Yes.
And his thing was, that's exactly the kind of woman I'm looking for, because I'm a rancher. And I need someone who can ride with me and for me. And Anastasia is that woman that rides with and for him. But she's no one's pushover. She has her own thing. She's a very successful attorney. And if anyone messes with anyone on the ranch, they're not going to call Bleak. They're calling Anastasia.
Yes, I noticed that throughout the series. But the one thing about Bleak is that, he's now the third generation on this ranch.
Yes.
So his grandfather ran it one way, right? And then his father came in and did something totally different. But what I love the contrast between his father and him is that his father was about his business as well with the ranch and everything. But his father went into these circles wanting to please and making sure that they liked him or showing off. What I like about Bleak is he was coming in, he was who he was, like I said, unapologetically him.
The blackest cowboy.
He wasn't going to make up a whole lot of noise, but once he leaves, he was there.
Exactly.
And I love that about him. And I love how he took what he learned from his father. He didn't necessarily, he didn't necessarily dislike his father, but
he loved him.
Yeah, he loved him very much, but he knew that his father taught him some things that he didn't want to do.
He wasn't a good guy.
Yeah.
Because he told Anastasia early on, before they were dating, he took her to one of the ranchers' meetings, and he says, just be yourself and you'll see what happens. And he said, this is the kind of thing that my dad loved, because he loved white acceptance. He said, I'm here mostly because they don't want me to be here, because I own myself. No one owns my ranch but me. And they basically just leave me alone because they know they can't do anything with me. And I think that that's what our communities require.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even in my little small way, when I first started publishing, I was like, I'm going to publish what I want and the people will come. And I'm willing to wait it out. I will take my time. I will do this way, because I was much older. When I started publishing 19 years ago, I was almost 50. Most people start much younger than that. And, I had done all this. My husband had been in the military. I'd raised my kids. And it's like, okay, I've always wanted to write. This seems like a great time to start. And that's basically what I've done thus far.
Yeah. And now like I said, the series, so in the series, is the first book. You give us a lot of history of the generations and everything. There was another nugget that was in there that I thought, I wasn't sure how you were going to go with this, but Bleak's mother.
Oh my.
And I wasn't sure whether or not how I felt about her in the beginning. But I understood her, from a woman, especially, having to have to deal with some things. We don't want to give anything away, y'all.
Right.
Look, it's going to be hard for me not
Because
to
it's 8 books in.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's 8 books in. And but I want you guys to experience all this yourselves, because one of the best things about reading a book is experiencing things for yourself. So you know what I mean? But his mother had experienced some things, you know, due to his father's recklessness. And you know, years by, because they say what you do in the dark is going to always come to the light at some point. And so it did. So I wasn't sure when it was interesting how when he married Anastasia, he did something totally different as far as you know, them being a couple than what his father did with his mother.
Or would have done.
Yeah.
And if there was such a thing as rolling over in his grave, Bleak Jr. rolled over in his grave when Bleak the Third did what he did.
Right.
Because you just didn't do that.
But you know, it's common to do that when you get married. So you know, without giving anything away, what was your decision? How did you make the decision to have his father deal with marriage one way and then he dealt with it another way?
I think it's generational.
Okay.
All of the Bleaks had their sons, and they only had one son at 40. They got married late, they had their one son, and they all raised them differently. Bleak the Third actually did a lot of things his dad didn't approve of. For instance, starting his own clothing company.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to do nothing that didn't involve the ranch. He also didn't like the way his father treated his mother, which was one of the reasons he didn't want to marry. So he made a vow once he found the woman that he wouldn't be that guy. But he also married a woman who wasn't going to allow him to be that guy. And Marie, the mother, admits that she put up with a lot of things because she loved him. She was the wealthiest Black man. You're talking like the 1960s,
Injuries, right?
70s, and 80s. Yeah. So she did what women did at that time when they married successful men.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed Bleak to be a prototype. He needed to break a certain cycle, because that's how we stop generational stuff. One person has to say at some point that my family has done this forever, but I will be the one that doesn't. And he needed a partner who would support that. And when his father's mistake came through, he had the right woman in place, because who knows what he would have done had Anastasia not been a part of that particular, what
Yeah.
could have been a train wreck. And
Yeah.
there was some disenfranchisement for a while between him and his mother because of that.
Right. Right. You know, and you know, because Bleak loved his father, he did, you know, he did recognize his shortcomings, and then he loved his mother, but he also recognized his mother's shortcomings too.
Exactly.
And so while they were the parents, you know, he had to be the rational one, you know, in during his time, because you know, I had no idea what you were going to do with that when the things unfold, the secret unfold. I didn't think he was.
Everyone was afraid.
Oh, I was afraid.
Everyone was afraid.
Because, you know, but I loved how you handled it though. And yes, she was salty for a while, but I love how she is riding with the issues right now.
And what I did was created a scenario where she had to engage with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because if what had occurred with him that particular day with Blade, had that not happened, I think she'd have gone on forever not engaging with him.
Yeah.
Because she literally could not allow what was occurring to occur, because she had grown up in the city when, you know, during the civil rights era. And now they're living in the 2000s when if a Black guy gets stopped by the cop, anything can happen.
Oh, yeah.
And because she was this woman that she was a matriarch of the community. And when she walked out to the police officer and said who she was, he was like, well, ma'am, I didn't know. And she didn't have a problem using Bleak's name. Bleak might have not used it, but Marie had no problem. She likes all the luxuries that her life entails.
She did. She did. But I also loved but she didn't do it gracefully at first, but I love how she stepped aside and allowed Anastasia, even though she did not have the same privileges Anastasia had. I do like how she stepped aside and recognized, you know, before it was too late, recognized, you know, you're living in a different times. And then she noticed that Bleak was doing things differently, not like his father, but the way things should have been done. And
her.
Yeah, and I was a little worried because I didn't know how she was going to take Anastasia. And then Anastasia's not one to be fooled with either mother, father, or nobody. She wasn't.
Period, because her Anastasia and her mama always locking heads.
Right. But I love what you've done with the series with all of them, and I love how you've grown them to what they are now. And here is my biggest fear. My biggest fear is that we're 8 books in, and I don't know how far you're going to go. And and if it's close to the end, I don't know how I can take it. So every time I read a book, I'm always reading it slower and slower, because when I get done, I'm like, oh my God, is she going to do another one?
I'm going to say this. I had a book called the Be Careful series. It had 50 episodes. Those were the short books. And what I have been very careful to do is every single BLACKMON book, I'm introducing new people.
Yeah, I'm noticing that. Yeah.
And the new people are getting to tell their own stories. Like, for instance, number 9 is Malik Wilson.
Okay.
He's been in the last 2 books, and he begged to have his own story. But there are a lot of characters in there who could potentially, I mean, no one saw a Nathaniel book. But there he was. And, I have to say this, though, the most interesting thing is people didn't care as much for the women of BLACKMON Ranch as they did for the others. And I guess they were just wanting hot men rather than the women's story. But I needed the women to come together in a way that only Blade's grandmother could do. And that's why I did the women of BLACKMON Ranch, because the ranch is not just being run by Bleak, it's being run by very qualified women. His PR woman is a woman. His wife is the attorney, it's a woman. Pia is another attorney, she's a woman. His mother, Marie, is the woman.
Yeah.
So I needed it to not just be about these successful hot men, dating women and tossing them aside. And because that ain't my goal. I want to write about Black love, Black families, Black prosperity. And then when you're in that place of prosperity, doing something for those in the community around you. That is more important to me than I can ever explain in words. And that's what I try to do with Just Love Ministry, do as much as I can for whom I can. I can't do something for all the people, but I can do something for some people when I can. And that's what Bleak and Anastasia is about as well.
Yeah, I was going to say this series kind of mirrors your own journey with your ministry and everything, and how you help one another and how you show up for the community and doing the things that you do. But, in Black's, in the book with Bleak, he not only inherits the land, and for him, it wasn't just about the money. It was about the legacy. So, he inherits the land, and it's a weighted legacy. How was your approach in writing the internal struggles that go along with that, and then having him honor his ancestors the way he did, but also forging his own path? So did you go into researching this, or was this just something that you wanted to see for yourself and others?
It's a compilation, really, because I've watched. I'm a pretty quiet person, and I pay a lot of attention to people. I travel a lot. I spend a lot of times in crowds, and I always watch how people interact with people, what they do. And I think Bleak's journey was a lonely one, because you got to think about it.
Yeah.
This is a guy who inherited the ranch at 25. And for 16 years, he's unmarried, navigating life, doing all the stuff that wealthy men do, until he came to a point knowing that it had to be more than that. And I researched people, I think, couples who've been long married, people who have earned wealth together, I have friends like that. I was telling someone that when I'm sitting with I have a couple of sets of friends, my husband and I, and we all started out together. And now between the three of us, we have like 147 years of marriage, the three couples.
Oh, wow.
And I draw my strength and my thing from there, us staying together, us supporting our husbands through over 20-year careers, us learning how to save our money and raise our children and give to our communities. And all of those people end up piling into the work that I do on a regular basis. And I also like to write about people who have to overcome something, because who amongst us has not? Me personally, I'm certainly in a place that I did not dream of when I was born decades ago in Ocala, Florida. I couldn't visualize this for myself. But what I could do is keep doing the work. And I think that's what Bleak did. He just kept doing the work. It would have been so easy for him just to be this guy who got what he got and said that everyone else needs to get their own. But a lot of what he started to do became a thing after he was married and his life settled down and he had a son. Because he has this little 4-year-old boy. That's a wild one.
Oh, definitely he
trying
is.
to beat the boy, and Bleak's trying to save him.
Well, he's destined to be just what he is. He's got his mama and his daddy. So,
and he has those the granddad who adores him, and the whole
And his most treasured person is his what is that? His cousin, uncle, or you know what I mean? Blade. So we don't know.
Blade is his cousin, but he sees him as his uncle because of the age, right? Exactly.
And I think I never really zoned in on this, but I didn't know how Bleak saw him. So I didn't know as he came to him at that age, I didn't know whether or not he wanted to see him as a brother figure or a nephew figure. You know what I mean? And
they see him as a son, actually.
That's true. He does.
They see him as a son because he was 19 when he came. Bleak 42. Anastasia was 39. So in real time, that could have been their kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, in real time, that could have been their kid. But they had their back and forth because Blade was a little too enamored with Bleak's wife. Not in a negative way, but Anastasia draws eyes, and Bleak said, "Man, I will do anything I can to help you, but I will knock your head off if you ever mention my wife again," because that is who Bleak is about his woman. And I love that, and that's what I try so hard to write about is the Black love that I live and that I see. Because if you would pay attention to the stories and the social media, they would have us think it doesn't exist.
Oh, for sure, definitely.
And even in literature, he's got to cheat on you with 5 women before y'all get together. Why do we have to do that? And that's just a place that I wasn't willing to go in. It may have cost me, but I'm willing to pay whatever that cost is.
No, I've always been. This was very well written, and it does depict Black love at its finest. So let's go back to Marie a little bit. Okay. So as you're writing Marie's character, she kind of delivers her own powerful message in her own right. Can you talk about what was your muse for writing her as a matriarch and what message you wanted her to portray to us?
When we take away the money and how she lived, Marie is a composition of every Black woman of a certain age that I'd ever encountered. The women that raised me, the women that I sat at the feet of, they were about compromise for their husbands, for their children, and for their families. That's how they navigated life. They were of the impression that men do certain things and we just suck it up, and that's the way that it is. So I had watched those women my whole life, the Maries of the world, who did whatever they felt they had to do to stay married to their husbands because nobody else was going to have the life that they worked so hard for.
Mm-hmm.
And then I needed to bring in an Anastasia who was like, I don't care how hard you work for it. I'm not allowing anyone to treat me the way you allow Junior to treat you. So I needed to do like a split screen message sometimes of the things that we as women, Black women in particular, are allowed, and the things that we currently allow, because what we do sends the message to our children.
Yeah, I can see
And
that.
Bleak's understanding of his mom was that she allowed his father to do whatever he wanted to do because that lifestyle was so important to her. And in essence, that was true. But she comes into her own as a woman of a certain age. As she grows and Anastasia and other women become a part of her life, because she didn't have any friends. Who was going to be friends with her wealth? And she's a little snotty. And then she didn't trust women around her husband because she knew that Blade Jr. might do something. So she kept her life very small and tight. But having Anastasia and other women on the ranch incorporate her into their lives, she grew strength. She even talks to Anastasia about that in book 8, about how much she admires her, aside from the fact that she's married to her son and all the strength. Because with Marie, I could have done one or two things. When Anastasia came into that room, Marie was impressed by the way she dealt with Bleak.
Mm-hmm.
I could have made her the mother that wasn't accepting of any woman that her son became interested in. And I wasn't interested in writing that trope. I wanted it to be a woman who wasn't necessarily thrilled with the way he treated Anastasia as opposed to the way she was treated, but she respected her, and she could even see, being 40 years older, what she could learn from her. And that's where we go wrong a lot of times. I'm open to learning from the young ones. A lot of us, once we get 60, 70, 80, we ain't trying to hear nothing these young people say, because we know better, and they can't tell us nothing.
It's a saying in the medical field, like sometimes you need a little new blood, because they look at things a little bit differently.
Absolutely differently. And that's why I always have the women getting together. They're from all walks of life. There's Marie, the matriarch. There's Anastasia, the attorney. They bring in the lady who cooks in the kitchen. They brought in the horse trainer. It's just a mix mash of that. And even Bleak calls Anastasia out at times. Remember when he said to her, do you really care about the women of the ranch, or do you really care about your friends who are like you?
Oh, yeah.
And she had to really check herself on that, because that was exactly where she was. She'd never talked to the woman who was also a cowboy. She felt they didn't have anything to discuss.
Because of where she was and where that person was.
Right.
But I love how, though, that everyone on the ranch, no matter what their position was or station in life, they were it was expected for them to be very respectful. And I love how they just made everyone just feel welcome. And I have to say, I wish I had a job where you can go down and have somebody cook all of these meals for you, and then you can take home a care package. You don't even have to cook dinner. If you want to. You just going down like you're going to the fast food restaurant.
But there are jobs out there like that. A lot of these conglomerates, you'd be amazed at what Google and all these people do for their employees to keep them. But it's not been done for us. And that's what BLACKMON Ranch is for me. It is a series of books where we are given and treated the same as any other group of people in America, and we're treated that way by our own. And we have the resources to do it. We just need the community.
Right. And everything that we need the community.
We need the community.
Yep. Yeah. So even though we know that in real life there are Black cowboys.
Yes.
But in the movies, from way back when we were kids and watching Westerns and stuff, it wasn't necessarily portrayed that they were, powerful, or even if they even existed, right?
No.
So here you come along and you give us this blackety black.
That's it. Here comes Angelia with her food.
Right.
You better know it.
Right. Here you are to set the bar now. But in what does it mean to you and as you was writing Black Story and all it because it's not just Black that is a cowboy. They all are cowboys,
Oh yeah,
on there and they
Anastasia's a cowboy. She has her own horse.
yeah. So what is it like or I guess what ingredients did you pull from to make Black or and all of the gentlemen that were on the ranch, the cowboys in the 21st, century, so to speak, like such a time as this. And how did Bleak's identity change and reinforce? How important was it for you to have his identity change and reinforce the stereotypes that we have today?
Well, Bleak from the beginning did things his own way. His dad didn't think he needed the education that he got.
Mm-hmm.
He never told anyone that he had a PhD in forensic science, science, because he was a person that didn't lead with that.
Mm-hmm.
And he made sure that the people that he hired were always vetted and that they were the right type and that they would fit into the scenario that he was trying to create. Because you will notice that there are times when when the women on the ranch are getting out of control, he says, Anastasia, you need to rein them in because you don't want me to get on a microphone and talk to them because you're not going to like what I say to them.
Right. Yeah.
So he had set a standard that if you came to work for my ranch, and then he was recruiting people like Nathaniel and others from other ranches where they weren't being treated as well or doing as well. And he showed them what it could be to work for a Black man on a Black ranch and live quality Black lives. Because as Malik Wilson tells his friend Myron in the book, don't mess up your money, man, because I'm here to stay. You can do whatever you want. I like you,
right.
You're my friend.
Yeah.
But if you're a fool enough to mess up your money to try to get with somebody, then you might need to rethink that. And I think there's always a message there because a lot of people mess up what they're trying to do or what they're trying to have to try to impress people that don't need impressing. They know who they work for. They know what they have there. And they do everything they can to try to keep it. Now, Frederick, of course, retired because he struggled with one of the other men getting promoted over him. And then the one female cowboy that they had, she struggled because she was not a good fit for the ranch. They seriously only hired her because they wanted a female cowgirl. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but that's the way it works in life. But I believe I worked for the federal government, but I worked in an office where we were all treated so well. Like when my mother was sick, there was nothing for my supervisor to say to me, Angie, if you don't have enough leave, you go take care of your mom and we'll cover you. So there are companies that do that, and I incorporated that into that kind of a place. The ranch is the kind of a place where you go when you've gone the other places and you're ready to settle into something. But you got to work, you got to do things in the community, you have to serve the community because these people are providing you with everything, 3 meals a day and the whole nine. And you have to step up to that level. And it just shows for me that if you provide people with that kind of a place, there are those that'll fall off, like Felicia, but there are those others that are going to stay and serve because it's so wonderful to be a part of something like that.
Yeah, just like those the young ranchers that you talked about. I mean, they were a prime example of them coming into their own. They found something that they like to do. They hit a lick, really, basically.
Exactly.
They, like you said, they in some cases they not only did they feed them, but they provided housing for them too. So yeah, I mean, they had everything you would ever want. Why would you leave, right? And why would you mess that up?
Well, Bleak fired, a PR lady, and he had another guy that left. And when you cross, because Bleak will say to you, you guys handle it however you want. But if it does not work, I'm going to handle it Bleak style, and no one's going to like how that works because it's not going to be what you would do.
That PR lady, it was clear that she wasn't going to be able to handle herself once Anastasia got there.
That's it.
Yeah. So, and that's unfortunate for her, but then you don't leave gracefully too. And she obviously saw another side of what Bleak could do. and then him with the encouragement of Anastasia. It's just nowhere that you can hide when the both of them are running shotgun on you. It's just no way.
Because Anastasia, like, you better handle her, because she
Yeah.
always ready to get into something with somebody. You know,
She is. She is. She is.
her education does not stop her from being that girl.
Right.
She'll put on the tightest dress, the highest heels, and then go step in people's face like she can fight somebody.
One of the scenes that was one of my favorites. I can't remember the young man's name, but he was the photographer. And the photographer that works with his dad.
Right.
I think it was Snaps. Okay. Snaps. So, he was trying to impress the girl, but, in his mind, he knew that he should not be doing what he was doing. Mm-hmm. But I love how they showed up at the store, and just.
And his dad was like, boy, what is wrong with you?
Right. But then after they got all of the niceties out of the way, like, you can't be doing this or whatever, when they offered him the job, mm-hmm. and then, he didn't know what, he was so stunned. And then his father was like, are you stupid? You better take this, So I love, that was one of my favorite scenes about that, how, they just get in the car, roll up on you, and they talk all of this legal jargon about, tell you about yourself, and this is what you're not gonna do. But if you agree,
and you can see Anastasia in their face, like, right, in their mind. She's the blackest cowgirl.
Right.
And what I also tried to do is I brought in the one girl who came from Gainesville. She grew up in what was called the Porter home, which is really an actual area in Gainesville. And she was not, the people that came to the ranch weren't wealthy people. They came to work, and they got in really great situations by doing the work. Mm-hmm. And that's what I tell all the people all the time. This is not easy, none of it, but you have to do the work and stay the course.
Mm. Stay the course. Yeah. And like I said, and I love how they ride hard for Blade too. Mm-hmm. And I love how he accepts them, the way he does. I love that whole relationship.
And he's just as humble, because, Blade was working as a casual at the post office, mm-hmm. and as broken poor as he could be. So, he was like, what is this, Disneyland?
Yeah. He forges his path, his own path as well. So I love how they, support him, and he's just doing the dang thing on there too.
And he didn't mean, that was never his intent. He was in this area, and he said to Bleak, he said, we need to blacken up the street over there because there are no black businesses. And mm-hmm. Bleak was like, go ahead, I'll support you.
And I love how I can just imagine how stunned he was. Again, he wasn't long there, right? In their presence, and wasn't looking for anything. He was just happy that he was accepted, and that, that they didn't push him away. But when Bleak told him, okay, then you do it, he gave it to him. It's like, we can do this, and, Bleak was already doing his own clothing line. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure Blade was like, well, he could just do this. I'll give you the idea and you could just do this. And when he told him that, no, you do that for yourself, I was just like, oh my gosh.
And Blade didn't even want a raise. When Bleak was trying to give him his annual raise, he said, oh, I don't need a raise. I got a house. I got a truck.
Yeah.
I got this money you paying me. I don't need anything else. I'm good.
Yeah. And that's what happens when you come from, humble beginnings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And his grandmother raised him a certain kind of way too.
Don't you just love Bella?
Oh my God, I do love Bella.
Don't you just love Bella?
I love Bella because, Bella she knew what position she played.
And she admitted it.
And so she accepted everything that Marie had given her because mm-hmm. she knew that was her, that was just what she had coming. Mm-hmm. But I do love how protective she was of Blade, like any other mother or grandmother would be. And when she got on that ranch, it almost like she transformed too, because she wasn't that soft little Bella that was happening when her life was spiraling out of control there. So
no, she had to make it work. I mean, and I've had people thank me for bringing in the sickle cell component. You
Mm-hmm.
know, because what I try to do is make these people as real as I possibly can. And I knew several people in my life, not in my family, but that I've known over the years who've passed on from sickle cell. And they usually pass very young, especially if they have problems. Like, for instance, father, Blade Sr., used drugs and alcohol. And often I discovered in the people that I knew in real terms, they did as well, because the pain from sickle cell is so excruciating. Someone
Yeah.
explained it to me as you can literally feel your icy blood flow through your veins when you're having an episode.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine that you walk life like that? So, of course, you might do drugs and alcohol. But he was also a very good father to his son
Yeah.
and left lasting messages with him. And, a lot of people was like, I wish that this had happened when Blade Sr. was still alive. That wasn't my story to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that wasn't
And
my
I,
story
I
to
was I
tell.
was kind of one of those people, but not so to the point where I would want you to rewrite the story. I love
Hmm.
the story that you gave us, but it was just you gave us enough to know what Blade was made of.
And I needed to be realistic.
Yeah.
I needed it
I,
to
it
be
would,
realistic because Bella honored what Marie asked of her,
mhm,
but she only asked it of her about Blade Sr.
mhm,
She had no idea about Blade Jr.
mhm.
So that woman said, I am going to do what I can for my grandson that I did not do for my son.
Mhm.
Let
Yeah,
all bets be off.
yeah. And I thought too, like that was such a difficult relationship for all parties involved.
Very difficult.
So you wish it turned out different, but you understand how it turned out and why it turned out. You
Mm-hmm.
can look at Marie as being the bad guy.
She's just a woman.
Well, yeah, she was a woman,
She's
and,
just
and
a woman.
and then you could also look at Bella as being the bad guy. But when you think about their stories side by side, they did what any one of us would have done given that
In
situation.
that situation.
Yeah, and they made the best of what it would
And
do.
it humanizes people. Because I was this is an off story. Our um news our weather guy is retiring at the end of this week. And he's been there for 43 years. And he got a DUI like 15 years ago. And people still hold that against him. And everyone he works for said that he is the best man they ever worked for. He just had a flaw. And from the day he got a DUI, he never took another drink.
Oh, so they don't celebrate that. They just celebrate the
The
mistake.
fact that he got a DUI 15 years ago. And that's how we castigate people and keep them in a certain place. Oh, she was an adulteress 43 years ago. So nothing that she does after 43 years is of
Mhm.
no relevance.
Yeah, but you did give us the backstory. It was unfortunate that Bleak Jr. Not to not to excuse anything he did, because he messed up a few lives by the decisions that he made.
He did.
But he was truly in love with
With
Bella
Bella.
and truly in love with Marie.
Marie.
So,
And a lot of people
uh,
say that ain't possible. Well, you hadn't lived
oh,
long enough, because a lot of people find themselves in that situation. And Marie was not an easy woman.
mhm,
She was not an easy woman. And the thing of it is that if it would have been left up to Junior, he'd have
mhm.
taken that boy.
Yeah, he tried to do it the right way,
Yeah, he'd have taken
but
that boy.
yeah, yeah. So we have, you've given us, Anastasia and Blades and their story, and Bleak and their stories, and then you gave us Nathaniel and all of those ones. So now Nathaniel has his own thing. So in terms of the ranch and stories moving forward, are we going to have more of Nathaniel, or is he just going to be kind of like a passing through? Now you've got him all set up with his own family and everything now. So is there going to be anything new with Nathaniel?
Perhaps.
Okay.
And he's going to be a part of Malik's story, because he's his mentor.
Yeah.
He's going to be a part of the of Malik's story coming up. He'll figure largely in that, and you know, they're having the children. So Nathaniel will continue to be as relevant to the ranch as he was before, but I just had to get these last two books done about 2025, and then the backlash. This one lady wrote a review, and she's hot with me. Oh, she's mad with me. She gave me she said, I just do not like this, what you're doing here. This is a classy story. Now you got to turn them into gangsters, and they're going to be fighting with the rest. I said, ma'am, I didn't even write the story yet.
Yeah, but where's she getting that? I've read all the stories
from this book 7. When it ends with how it ends, I can't say. But she was convinced that I was going to take them off on some gangster activities. I was like, what would make you think that based upon anything that I've ever written? I mean, she was hot with me. She came in my inbox. She sent me an email. She wrote a review on Goodreads. She was hot.
Oh.
But she did tell me that I redeemed myself with book 8.
Okay. Yeah, I never thought you were going, you know, that way. But another thing I like too about too is the vernacular that you have them speak in. You're not, you know, it's real. You made them real by the words and how they say it and everything like that, you know.
That's my goal. My young people speak the way my young people speak. The elders speak the way the elders speak. You know, like with Anastasia saying to Bleak, that what his mama said, not Nan. And he said, my mama did not say that. And she said, well, in my Trick Daddy voice, she did say that. Because they're in their 40s. Trick Daddy is who they know. Maria,
yeah, right.
From it. Exactly. So I try to keep, I remember many years ago, this Kay Young told me, she said, I really appreciate that about you, is that you write in the voices of the people. You know, if it's a proper speaking person, they speak properly. If not so much, they don't. If they speak a certain amount of slang, then they do. Because I think it was something that you said, and I told you what the word meant. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. Yeah, but that made me think, and I went back and looked at all of the way you did it. You know, the way they talked and everything. So okay, so yeah, it was a system in there. So I'm doing prim and proper. You know what I mean? And then you had to school me and tell me.
And I said, Blade would never say it that way.
Right.
Because remember too, he's from New Orleans.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's from New Orleans.
Yeah. And I mean, Blade is very different from any other cowboy I've ever read about.
Because he sure didn't plan to be a cowboy. He was trying to work at the post office. He wanted a full-time job at the post office.
But you know what? The one thing too is that he was a natural though. He came in there, and even with the horses, and even with, you know, his business, he is such a natural, you know. And he's just, you know, you can tell that it runs through his blood, because he's just like Bleak. You know what I mean?
Like him.
Yeah.
That's why they bump up against each other periodically.
And they even look alike, I think you said too.
They look alike. That's what was so startling to Marie, is when she saw him, she said, oh my God. You know, she just couldn't believe how much he embodied her husband and her son. And now she thinks he's the most handsome thing she ever seen in her whole life.
Well, I love that the way that he understood her position. Didn't fault her for the way she felt. He respected that. I love that. And then I love how he found a way to connect with her.
And he was raised by Bella, who taught him well. From what she knew, she taught him respectfulness. And he's just a shining star. And that's what Pia had to learn. I'm just leave that there.
Right. right. Because then that'll take us in a whole nother direction. So now in these latest books, you're introducing us to, you know, more characters. Oh my goodness. Wait, before we do that, what are the gentlemen's names? Oh my gosh, they just escaped me. I wanted to ask you about their roles. You know, the ones that that mentors Bleak?
Oh, Malcolm Black.
Yeah, Malcolm and
There's
Jamal.
like
Right?
about 100 books about Malcolm and Cinnamon that I wrote. Those were the first book I ever wrote was called Black's Obsession, and it was Malcolm Black and Cinnamon Black, and I wrote those books for years. And I have some readers who periodically I have to write a Cinnamon book because they're just absolutely in love with Cinnamon. And then there is Jeremy Felipe. He's the mayor of Center City, which is about 40 miles from where the ranch is located.
Mm-hmm.
And those are his mentors and backers. Jeremy is a pastor and the mayor, and Malcolm Black it was one of the first millionaires in Center City, the only Black millionaire in Center City, because he left and went to college and then worked on Wall Street before returning to Florida.
Oh, okay.
But and I just try to, what has happened with the Bleak books is that all the books that I've written prior to that, people are now reading them who didn't read them before, and adding Black and Cinnamon into the mix assisted with that. I didn't even have enough sense to know that would occur, but that's what happened, and I'm just grateful for it. Bleak Blackmon and his woman have been very good to me.
Well, now you said you've written these books about Cinnamon and Malcolm.
The first books that I ever wrote were the Malcolm Black books. And
okay, I may have to go back because I don't think I have those.
And then there's the Cinnamon Black books that follow those, and I have them in order by series. I think there's probably about 40 or 50 stories there. And then there's the Temptation series, which basically is about Jeremy Felipe and how he met his current wife, and that's 11 stories in.
Okay.
Yeah, but I like to mix and mingle them together because they're all in Florida, in that central Jacksonville where I live now, to Ocala, Florida, where I grew up, which actually became Center City in the books. When I first wrote the Cinnamon books, people were convinced I was writing about myself, and I have nothing to say about that other than think what you want.
You're not telling.
Think whatever literally people will say, I know that story that they was talking, and that was Town Talk down there on Broadway. Girl, you're not fooling me. So whatever.
All right, so I have to go back and do some back reading.
I will link them to you in the inbox afterwards.
Okay, yes, so I can go and grab those. So guys, if you're looking at the screen here, this is the series, the Blackmon Ranch series so far. Here's the one where it started it all. Well, it sounds like it started a little bit before, but at least the Blackmon Ranch series started with this one right here. This is Bleak Blackmon's woman. And this is when Anastasia, came and just gut punched.
Well, this is where this started totally. I didn't add Black and Cinnamon in until, Black and Felipe in until like book 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they're his mentors, and they also, are like investors,
right,
in his school, because he started a school,
right.
But anyway, this is where we go. This is the first book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5, book 6, book 7, and now the latest release, book 8. And now, so like Mama Tony said before, you guys can go ahead and pick up 7 and 8 and read it. You can read it very slow because she has said that it's not ending here. So we got some more, so you can go ahead and read them.
And it'll probably be late August before we get another one.
Okay, that we're not that far away. So if you haven't started the series, get going. It doesn't take you long to get through these books, and I have to say, when you start them, you're not going to be able to do much more. So that's just going to be a cautionary measure. I have to tell you, because you want to go straight through these books, but they are there. It's enough for you to read, and if you read at a certain pace, say August, September, or whatever, because we don't like to. You say August, but
anything could happen.
Anything can happen, right? So we don't want people knocking on your door saying,
the longest book that it took me to write was the Blackmon's, the second book, and it's the shortest book.
Wow.
Because when I started writing that book in May of 2023, I had just been diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, okay, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. I was just amazed that people were like, you need to hurry up. I was like, can I just get well?
Yeah, I have to apologize for all readers. Number one, a few things about us, if you don't know.
I'm
We
a
are
reader. I do know.
right, so we're greedy, and sometimes we forget that you are,
Human.
human like we are. So I have to apologize for all readers, but I
Right.
myself have gotten a lot better over the years because
I
I was that person.
appreciate that. I love you guys' support, but just remember, I'm just one woman.
Right. And,
And I gave you
having
guys
been,
8 books in 2 years, in
yeah,
addition to other books that I was writing at the same time.
yeah, no, you've been doing a marvelous job though. But I do have to say, I did kind of slow my pace when I was reading these last two. Well, the last one because I didn't know that you were coming out. This last one, the backlash kind of snuck up on me because I was expecting that one to come much later if you was going to do another book. So when I looked up and saw that, I was like, "Is that for real?" And I was like, "Okay, well, I could go ahead and get finished
It
with this."
just kind of wrote itself because I knew exactly in my head where I was going with it. And I'm a weird. I don't do outlines or anything. I just
Mhm.
write.
Oh, so you're a pantser, huh?
I'm definitely a pantser. And sometimes I don't even have names or anything. And then I go back and I write again and rewrite and change some things. And writing is one of the gifts I thank God for every day.
Mm.
Because it was something I always wanted to do. I just didn't get started until late, and that worked out perfectly because now I can do it the way that I want to do it
Yeah,
without any interruptions or anything. And I feel really blessed by it. I feel most blessed by things like this and the fact that people will actually read what I've written and want to talk to me about it because no one has to do that. And I
yeah.
really, really, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you guys so much.
Well, we definitely appreciate you as well. I have to tell you guys a funny story about my relationship with Miss Angie.
I'm scared.
No, no, no. I think I've said this to you before.
Yeah.
So I have loved her for a long time, but from afar. Uh, when I first started reading and getting on social media, at first I had, I did not grasp the whole fact that you could, speak out and speak and touch an author and then be able to talk to them like you can. So it took me a minute. So I was reading these books and I used to label you as the master of short stories.
Thank you.
And so I still say that to you, but now you've given me something else now. So you kind of out of the doghouse with that one.
I sure appreciate it.
But I remember, I'm telling you, this is how much of a impact that you made on me while reading some of your books. I can remember exactly the way my living room was designed and where I was laying when I read that last short story, and I said no more. It was so many years ago. I used to be so mad at her because some of the short stories that she would write would be so good. And you know how you just so engrossed in the story and then it just ends and then it's a short story. So you're not going to get more. And at the time I couldn't reach out to her. So I said no more. And then I was side-eye when you release more books because I said, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. But then she wrote, and it probably before then, because I know I read some more books before, but she wrote Charlotte's story, Charlotte Return story. And that absolutely became one of my favorite books. Like I don't have it in print copy, and I wish I did
I will
because
make sure that you get it. I will
oh
make
my
sure
God,
that you
yes.
get it. Mm-hmm.
Because that book was just so good. And I remember reading it over and over again because I couldn't phantom her not writing a short story.
Well, it's funny you said that. My first book, Black's Obsession, was 300 and maybe 400 pages, and it was in small print. And I did 3 or 4 stories like that, and then people was like, "Oh my God, it's too much." When I'm on the bus, I can't stop. And then, as I said, short stories is my first love because California Cooper. What I do now periodically is I will write a short story like the Cinnamon's Christmas book,
Mm-hmm.
and I said I'm gonna give them everything I can until I'm like 90.
Okay. I can receive them a little bit better now.
Yeah.
So, you know, so now you're still you're one click, you're once again a one click for me
And
now.
I sure do appreciate. And one thing you can count on now is that it's never going to take me a year to write the second book if I plan to write a second book.
Okay.
Yeah, there are some that I write that's one and done. Charlotte was one of those books.
Yeah.
But for the most part, and I was saying to you earlier that BLACKMON Ranch knocked all my books off when it came to sales. But I started writing the Leaving series, which is I'm working on book 4 now, and it's racing behind BLACKMON real close.
Yeah, I've noticed that the traction that one has gotten. And those covers, again, I don't know if it's the covers or what it is, because again, you know, I'm searching out.
Those are all mine. I did those personally.
Oh, man, those are gorgeous covers. And these are all gorgeous covers too.
Yeah, my son did Bleak Blackman's Woman. He did, my oldest son Maurice, A Man Against Men, Nathaniel Leon, and then the compilation of BLACKMON Ranch. And I did the BLACKMON's Blade, BLACKMON, the Backlash, and the Women of BLACKMON Ranch. My boys get all of their talent from me.
All right. I don't know now. We have in print that Mr. Menchan is also a cover designer too.
He is. My first books, my husband designed all my. He is actually the strength behind all of what we do. I mean, Mr. Maurice Kenneth Menchan, my husband, senior. I think I just write too fast or need too much, or it's hard working with you people. I'm gonna just say that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
It seems like you guys have a pretty good running.
We do, but
there.
It ain't them, it's me.
Oh, okay. Well, you're the creative. Then that's what you blame it on.
Want it, and I want it when I want it, and I can be a lot.
Well, we won't tell nobody.
That's right. I'm the elder Anastasia of this particular Menchan Ranch.
Well, we love her, so then that means we will love you.
Thank you. And they love me too. They do.
Yeah. So I know I didn't want to keep you too long, but I appreciate you staying with me as long as you did. I have still a lot of questions about this, but
I know.
Please agree to come back at some point. So maybe we'll come back and we'll talk about the Leaving series. And hopefully from you guys seeing this series, you'll pick it up and you'll get to reading it. And so then when we have her back again at the book bar or someplace else, maybe we can have a discussion about it so we won't give away any spoilers. Y'all seen I was pretty good.
Yeah, we tried. We slipped up a few times, but we tried.
We did, but it's enough. It's fish bait, so they can catch on.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go with that.
Right.
Let's go with that.
So guys, please pick this series up. I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed, and it will be relevant to what is going on now, and maybe, spark some stuff in your own lives that you might need. Love this very series. But before we go, I have to ask you another question. So in writing this series, is there anything you learned new about yourself? And what was it?
New about myself. That's a lot. Maybe, no, I was going to say how political I am, but no, I was very political as a young woman. Maybe how fearless I am. Because this could have not worked.
Oh, and it's working very well.
This could have not worked because I had no idea that I would be writing book 9. When I did, because I wrote the first Bleak Blackman's Woman came out in April of 2023. And the Backlash Response came out, the 8th book, in April of 2025. Okay. And people have always said that I'm fearless. And yeah, this is proven that I will just take a chance.
Yeah. Now, I have to say that writing is not, let's just do this. Writing is not all you do. You have a ministry, you're a mentor, and you all. And before we go, tell everybody how they can stay connected to you, how they can support the ministry, where they can find you and all of your books before we go, so that because you're still writing, so we need for them to be able to follow you. And if you have a newsletter, let us know if you have a newsletter.
And I don't, and I should have a newsletter. It's amazing that I've sold the books I've sold without one. But as you know, I'm Angelia Vernon Menchan on Facebook. I also have a group that's called Angelia's Books and Conversations,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of the information is passed out in there. And then I have AngeliaVernonMenchan.com, which is my website. But honorablementionmedia.blogspot.com is where my business is kept. Honorable Mention Media is my LLC. And the mention is our name, Menchan, Honorable Mention Media. And that was suggested by my youngest son, Malik, that we should have kind of a compilation there because he does my T-shirts and my mugs, and my husband also, and
mugs, guys. So
yeah.
go on there and get you some mugs, get you some T-shirts. Are you still doing the journals as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I just haven't done a lot of mugs, journals, or T-shirts currently because I've just been so busy.
Mm-hmm.
And my sons are also quite busy, and they also have books. I saw you notice my youngest son's book the other day that I had posted with the young guy on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
And that's escaping, the name of it is escaping me too. Now that's an aging thing. But basically reach out to me through Instagram, Angelia Menchan, and I'm Angelia Vernon Menchan on Facebook, and that's also my website. And Honorable Mention Media is my blog, honorablementionmedia.blogspot.com. And also, my books are all, of course, on Amazon and most of the online book sites. This is the worst. This is the worst part. This is my worst thing, is selling myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah, but I'm in all the places, and I know I'm saying this over and over again, but I really appreciate you guys so much, and I especially appreciate you for doing this, and you've really helped me a lot behind the scenes, and I can't let that go unspoken.
Yeah, no, and I love everything about it, and I'm honored to do it. Again, this is so long overdue. You just don't know what an honor it is to have you there. And please agree to come back, because I'm over my short story thing. So now we can have an open dialogue.
Well, nowadays my short stories, rather than being 30 pages, is more like 120.
Yeah,
so
I can handle that. I can handle that. We've graduated.
Right, it's the upgrade.
And
I tell people that I write fast and I write furiously, and all I need to do is, I have this book called Lost in St. Martin. My husband and I was in St. Martin on a vacation, and the bus broke down.
Oh.
So I was sitting there staring out a luxury bus, mind you, and I'm staring out the window, and I was like, I wonder what would happen if I got off this bus and just wandered through the streets. And my husband said, baby, you're right, ain't you? And I wrote the Lost in St. Martin series that became another one of my best-selling books about this woman who's a photographer. She just gets off the bus and someone robs her, and this handsome man who's kind of a recluse kidnaps her.
Oh, wow.
He kidnaps her. So the imagination is endless.
Well, we love that. We love that. And I can't leave without saying my auntie then popped up in the chat there. Hey there, Miss Eva.
Hey, that's my friend.
I know.
There.
I know. Thank you so much for joining us.
She is so supportive of me and all the things that I do.
Yeah, this one right here has a really big heart. Yeah,
she
is everything. So thank you for joining us again. So guys, I will be dropping some chats. I will be dropping some links in there, like the websites and stuff like that, as I get them, so that if you missed it, you'll have it in the chat. Just click on them, buy some books, buy some other stuff, because you're doing other stuff too. You're doing oils, and are you doing soaps?
Oil, soaps, and butters.
Okay. And then so she has merch as well. So she's not about the books, but she has other things. So make sure.
It sure sounds like a lot of stuff when I say it.
You know what? I'm a lot too. So I get it. I don't have no problems, because I read, I do this, and I do crafting, and I do all of that. So it is a lot, but you know what? We love it. So
I sure do. Every minute. I'm a gardener too.
Oh yeah, me too.
I'm a gardener.
We almost have to now. We almost have to. So guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Miss Angie, for coming to join us today, sharing the heart behind the Black series. And listeners, you already know where to find her books. And if this is something that you like and you want to see more of this, please like and share this video and others. Make sure you follow me on YouTube and on Facebook, which is where I stream all of my shows too. And I am so grateful that you guys take the time to come out with me. And if there is no other questions for our guests or for me, we're going to say bye-bye for now. Make sure you be kind to yourself and to others. And
Thank you. I appreciate all of you. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.